I understand that you are the spitting image of the man who assaulted your mother.
Yeah. Mom, when I found this out when I was about 21, that she had mentioned to somebody that she hated me as a child. There was times that it was a love-hate relationship. She loved me one minute, and then the next minute she was just horrified at me.
Did you really hate him, Kathy?
I hated what he represented as a young adult because I hadn't fully dealt with what had happened to me. And when I saw his face, you know, it was a reminder constantly of what had happened. And to separate that from the person, my beautiful son, was difficult when I was young. But thankfully we were able to work through that.
How did you tell him the truth? And why did you tell him? And was it necessary to tell him?
Yes, it
Why?
was. I think he needed to know. As a young person, I didn't want him to have further trauma. He knew that he was adopted by his father, who I'm still married to, almost 25 years this weekend. I just had to plug that. No.
And who is my father?
Yes, and anyway, he had so much trauma that by the time he was in his teens, I just felt that he needed to know the truth.
I was experiencing a tremendous amount of rejection because I thought that my mom and biological father had been in a relationship that was willful. And so I was feeling personal rejection from my biological father. And when I found out about the rape, it changed my whole circumstances and my point of view. No longer was I facing personal rejection, but I was a victim of circumstances, and so was my mom.
But this is a very personal and a moral decision. But now, knowing what you know, what are your thoughts on abortion, especially in cases of rape and incest?
Well, I am against abortion in all cases, and anybody would expect me to be against it from my point of view. But the thing that I want to make very clear is that my point of view is selfish. Just as if a woman who is saying that I don't want this child to alter the direction of my life, we have the same point of view. But we can learn from Lee and my mother as far as what sacrifice will do and what love will do. And I think that I've learned from that example, and I think we all need to learn from that example.
My question is for the moms. Did you ever have a fear that maybe your children would, like, get some of the bad genes from their fathers, like they would suffer at all, or?
Not really. I raised them, and, you know, I didn't think of that part of it. I just did the best, or my husband and I did the best that we could.
What's the hardest thing, kids, I know you're not kids, but I'll refer to you as kids, what's the hardest thing in terms of coming to terms with the rape? What was the most difficult hurdle for you? Julie?
Well, I think it's not so much dealing with the rape itself, but dealing with society's perception of, like us saying, inheriting some evil gene, which is not reality at all, but it's a way, you know, we should have negative feelings about assault, but we transfer that to the child, and we think the child is evil or bad, and that's really not reality and truth about what happens.
How did you tell your son that you were raped? How old were you at that time? How old was he at that time?
I mean, would you be able to tell your son if that were the circumstances? That would be awfully tough.
It's a very tough situation.
The first time I told him, he was about 16, and it was not under very good circumstances, and the subject was kind of dropped because there was a lot of hurt involved. But then we brought it up later when you were, what, about 18?
No,
when you were away at college?
I was 19 or 20 when she brought it up.
You were in college then.
Yeah. And
Go ahead.
the thing that it helped me with was when initially I found out as a teenager, it was kind of mentioned, and I had a tremendous amount of rage towards my biological father. I thought he had damaged something that I loved so much, which was my mother. And I really, personally, wanted to hurt the man. You know, I did. And that is a natural response for, you're not going to mess with my mother.
Did you ever think about finding your biological fathers?
Yeah, I did, and I've dropped it. I have a name, and I know a little bit about his background, But let me give you a couple circumstances. He was drunk, and if you know anything about people that drink a whole lot, they have a tendency not to remember it clearly. He may not even know who I am. You know, he may watch me.
And you know
on
what?
television.
At this point, it really doesn't matter, does it? Because you have each other, you
No,
have that
it-
love. All of you do, don't you? And that's what's important.
Not really how they began, but what they've become.
You said it all. Lee, Julie, Kathy, Patrick, thank you very much for sharing your stories. We wish them